I'm going to do a little jazz number here. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll dance.
Yeah. All right. We're going to do a little Al Jarreau. Okay. So it's great to be here. And
Yeah. Thank you everyone for coming.
yeah,
Thank
how
you.
wonderful.
No, how fun.
Yeah. I usually use jazz as how this should sound, right? We shouldn't be stepping over each other. We should be giving each other opportunities to come into the conversation and go out of the conversation like a good trio, or if you like 4 players, that's also true. Okay. So my name is Dr. Dennis Rebelo. I'm the Chief Learning Officer. This is my official of the BIC. This is my official moderator jacket. So whenever you see this, it means I'm about to moderate something. And my co-moderator is Alexandra. And Alexandra is the founder of Willow Investments. It's a private wealth management company and advisory practice located right here in the heart of Berkshire. So I'm glad to be here with you today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Dennis.
Why are we doing this?
Oh. We're doing this because one day I was driving and I have to say I got really concerned about all the friction I see happening in the world, and just, people clashing over simple things. And I just had this feeling come over me that we need each other desperately. And what narrative are we telling each other to create so much friction and differences? And so it came over me that I wanted to do something to bring a group of people together, different generations, to understand each other better, and to perhaps gain some tolerance for each other. I always remember different generations saying that generation and that generation, as if it's so bad.
Well,
But
it was really your generation.
No, it was your generation. But it's we need each other no matter what generation. We need this younger generation. We need this older generation. And there's so much wisdom with each one of us. And
you go to obstacles, right? You go to like technology, because technology presents obstacles, right? And
opportunities.
And opportunities.
Exactly.
And opportunities. And so today is really about inviting folks representing you change the order of the seating. You're the 20s, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. Well, the order is different than here.
Put the youngest and the oldest next to each other.
I love it. We have panelists and this is how the show is going to go today, more or less. Maybe more, maybe less. Okay. We're going to have each panelist do about a 2.5 minute self-introduction, saying, here's who I am, right? Answering the question, tell me about yourself, right? Everybody wants to know who these people are. Some of you may already know that. And their relationship with technology in 2 to 2.5 minutes. We're not going to time you. We're not going to yank you with a cane, but it's just about that. Then we being Alexandra and I, we're going to offer up some questions for consideration to the different panelists. Panelists will answer the question. It'll be in a generative dialogical style, and it might spark an interest, in row 2. And I might say, hey, Nikki, making a funny face over there in row 2. What are you thinking? Well, I don't know. And then she'll, boom, ask a question. And I'm going to do my best to moderate the tension of giving you lots of space, right, to come in. But also, if you could be kind enough to realize I have to also let the panelists share some of their stories too. So if we can just kind of balance that together, that would be super helpful.
Yep, I like it.
Good.
We're ready to roll.
All right, we're ready to roll.
I like it.
Should we start with, who should we start with? You want to start?
Do we want to start from the top down or bottom up?
Catherine? Shall we?
Catherine,
tell us about yourself and your relationship with technology in 2.5 minutes or less, please. There's a scorecard underneath your seat. Please get it out and look at Catherine's name and get your pen ready.
So this is the oldest to the youngest, and I am not in my 60s. I am in my mid 70s. So my relationship with technology, I think, is quite different from the other people on the panels. But as I was trying to think about my relationship with technology here, one of the first things I thought of was, I can tell you exactly when I got my first personal computer. It was December of 1985. I was working on my dissertation at the University of Pennsylvania. and the first Apple desktops came out, and we spent over $3,000 so that I could have a computer that I could finish my dissertation on, and using it was amazing and really, really helpful. But then I was thinking back to when I was in grad school at Harvard in what was then called Soviet Studies, now called Russian Studies. And I definitely was fascinated with deterrence theory, with nuclear weapons and the game theory behind it, Thomas Schelling, and I'm more the humanities end of things, social sciences, but it was so far outside what I had ever known and worked on, and it was so fascinating. And you could understand why people believed in it and thought it was worth doing, And those were in the days when the Russians had 45,000 nukes and we had 45,000 nukes. So, how you could think that that was sensible, it's a little bit of a stretch, but it was fascinating for me. Fast forward to 2010. I was teaching international relations in Washington, D.C., and technology was changing warfare. It was changing policy. It was changing how individuals relate to each other. And I decided that I had to start teaching about technology in my international relations classes. But I had never, ever taken a course in technology. So I went to my students and I said, everybody's going to be on a team. You're going to work on something for a whole semester. It's going to be a common team IR project. But if there are some people who are willing to go out on a limb with me, I would like to have one team do something on cyber issues, cyber security, cyber warfare, and I will be on your team. I won't know anything. Any other team, I will be able to guide you. This team, we're all going to have to learn together. And I said, otherwise, if we wait for people like me to be educated about this, the policy people are going to be 50 years behind the Defense Department and everybody else.
So now you've got us all hooked, and we want to know about your views of mutual assured destruction and deterrent theory related to technology.
Anyway, so I guess, and I retired 7 years ago, and 3 years ago, I became the first Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at BCC person to teach a course online. And
Hey, Catherine, show with your hands how big that monitor was, that computer was that you had.
Oh, the computer was, yeah, like that.
Ginormous.
Anyway, so that's so my engagement with technology is unlike people who use it in a business environment. It's spotty, and but I think for most of us who aren't in tech fields, that's how it is.
Yeah.
We're always moving at different paces.
What I'm fascinated about already is how your answer is going to influence the next person introducing themselves. So thanks for being the leader there, just like you were in learning technology and introducing it to IR students in DC. Nicholas, let's go to you. We're just going to go down the line versus chronological.
All right.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. Nicholas Markovic. I graduated high school in 2021 from Mount Greylock Regional High School in Williamstown. And currently I'm a student at BCC and, going to be done there soon. But just that's one thing that's going to go into technology because, wow, when I was in senior year, I think I was very excited or maybe junior year, 11th grade. The pandemic hit, as you guys know, of course. So yeah, just that was really big for me because it's kind of changed me to who I am now. With the technology, I had to go to online school. I had to take, online classes, all of that. It was super weird. It was the weirdest thing I've ever done. And I mean, it was kind of nice at first because, I was at home, always with the boys, we were just hanging out, doing our thing. Yeah, and technology has changed a lot for me. I met my girlfriend online and she's from Venezuela. So my Spanish has very much improved. Muy bueno. So, yep. I mean, there's a lot of different things for me. Like technology is good and sometimes it's bad because I wish I grew up maybe in the 80s sometimes. And then sometimes I'm glad to grow up now, but it's just, I don't know, it's just a bunch of social media, let me think here, like different stigmas of, being somebody, somebody always wants you to be somebody else, but you want to be yourself. Like me, I didn't know what I wanted to do after school. I went to community college and, my school, Mount Greylock, a lot of people go to big universities and all that. So going to community college is it hurt a little bit because I felt like lesser than my other classmates just because they were on to bigger, better things. But, as I got older, I realized that this life, everybody takes their own steps. So it's just your own thing. And I keep getting wiser every day. Trying to think of what else. Oh, and I got another thing too. So social media for me, like technology, relationships, it improved a lot of relationships for me over quarantine. It's going to sound crazy to you guys, but, grew up with Xbox my whole life. Video games, all that, Call of Duty, NBA, all that stuff. I've always loved that stuff. I'm serious. So in quarantine, we couldn't just go over each other's houses and stuff like that. It wasn't really like that. We couldn't go out and do things. So we just hop on the game. That's all we would do. We just hop on the game. And right then and there, that's when a lot of my relationships grew just from being on a voice chat and not even seeing the other person. Just being virtual and being with that other person in a game really changed things for me. So yeah, I mean, I could tell you a wild story too. From when I was younger, I used to play Grand Theft Auto at a very young age. It probably wasn't the best, but when I was younger, I met a lot of my friends from online too. And, it's just, I still talk to them nowadays. And that was probably when I was maybe 12 years old and I'm 20 years old now. And I still talk to them, frequently sometimes. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, technology for my generation is huge. It's very huge. And it's continuing to grow, be its own thing, make a lot of money off of it. We want things fast, that's just our generation. So
what's compelling about what I'm hearing already is that there's this split where you dove into technology and have all these relational exchanges or have had them and continue to sustain those relationships, but you were not wanting, or it seemed like you were having a tone of being resistant to Zoom and all that other stuff, but you get to hang with your guys live, your boys, as you call them, right? And so it's it feels like even your body was shifting a bit in explaining the pull of the freedom, but don't like it totally all of the time. Yeah. You can react to that a little bit now, or you can just say, yeah, it's tracking, whatever you want to say.
I mean, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all right.
I agree.
So if as audience members, we're going to invite you into the scene. That always happens when you public speak, by the way, Nicholas. You get hot. Suddenly
I'm really
feels like it's 82.
I mean, I had that.
It's 82, right? Oh, you'll get used to it when you're a little older, man. So there's technology. You can put a vest on, a cooling vest. I think Sean invented one the other day. So this is the Berkshire Innovation Center.
Or we can roll in the snow.
Oh, yeah. You could go old school. That's analog. We're going to go digital. Armin, this is your cue to pick us up and get us into your story. As you're listening, you're already probably forming questions. Park them somewhere and get ready to launch them. Okay, good.
All right, so my name is Oren Stark. I'm 40 years old, and I'm in that generation where technology has been an ever-evolving thing for me. I was born in the early 80s, and technology wasn't a commonplace thing when I was growing up. Not a lot of people had computers. Cell phones really didn't become popular or affordable until I was probably in college. And I think it's really interesting because I've been able to watch technology evolve in its entirety from, analog. I grew up in one of those houses where you had the one phone with the 9-foot cord and, you want to have a private conversation, you went around the corner and shut the door. And it's like, now
Lauren,
I
can
have.
you get a little closer to the mic?
Oh,
It's-
Sorry.
That's
Is that
okay,
better?
no worries.
Can you hear me now?
Thank you.
And so.
Good bridge
Yeah,
from
so
the
yeah,
cell
right,
phone
right. I'm
commercial,
still not good
right?
at technology. And now I live in a world where it's like I've got 3 computers, I have 2 cell phones. I use it for personal stuff, business stuff. I think touching on what Nick said, I think the biggest part of technology involving or integrating with my generation is about communication. We all started with MySpace and moved to Facebook, and now there's Instagram and all these other ways to interact with people.
Closer to the mic.
How's that? Sorry.
I feel that was very parental.
I was like-
That was good though.
Is that better?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we go.
So, and I think one of the interesting things is that the social media technology allows us to evolve all the different parts of ourselves. I went to school for art. I studied photography and glass blowing. Now I'm predominantly a painter. I'm able to, share my creative passions with people all over the world, and I'm able to see and experience art and different ideas and different forms of creativity that I would never have had access to. Tying into what Nick said about, feeling a little bit less going to, Berkshire Community College. In hindsight, I wish I hadn't gone to a big university, because we live in a world now where everything that you can get in an institution, you can pretty much get for free on the internet. And now we're in a place where anytime I want to learn something, it's like you YouTube it, you DIY, there's people out there who have wanted to learn what you're trying to learn, and they've made it easy for you to do that. So as much as technology lately seems to be, kind of divisive and maybe a little more aggressive oriented, I still try to focus on the positive and the essence of integration. Both for knowledge, creativity, and personal and spiritual development. So
Right on.
that's pretty much
Okay.
it.
A little bit more to put in your brain as you consider questions and perspectives and lived experiences that Oren has offered us here, and how that might be something you're curious about. Evigal, could you tell us a little bit about who you are
make
and
sure
your
the mic's
relationship
close.
with
I
technology?
learned.
Good job.
But maybe too loud, right? I used to be a teacher, so.
Mhm.
So, hello, my name is Evangelina Rising Guadalupe Colon Ramos Davila. I'll quiz you all at the end, just kidding.
You can
Um,
call her Eva,
Eva,
but I
or,
prefer Evigal.
or Eva Gales, my mother is here, and she'll throw me a chancletazo if they forget half of my name. I am from Puerto Rico, born and raised. And I guess I'll divide technology and how it impacted my life in 3 areas, both as professionally, personally, and in my business. So I had a unique experience, same with the telephone, the 9-foot cord, or the famous sound of the dial-up, where I wanted to be on the internet and wait a minute for a webpage to load, and my mom received the call. So, or you got mail. I grew up in that generation, but also I went to public school in Puerto Rico, where we didn't have whiteboards; it was all chalkboards. We used the old projectors where the light hit it to hit the wall. We basically were all standing underneath the fan, so it was very rudimentary technology, and I still remember to this day when I went to college there, but then I moved to the States to improve and learn English and improve my pronunciation. I still remember to this day when I first saw I saw for the first time a smart board, and I audibly said, "Oh my God, that is so cool!" And everybody in that room looked at me like I had a third eye, but that is okay. So I experienced that break. But for me, technology, once I learned more how to embrace it, it became a very good tool for me to get acclimated into the world. I grew up in my cultural bubble of being Puerto Rican, which I love. But then through that, I was able to understand and reach people around the world. And those one of the things that I loved most about the internet, because I love talking and learning about people and learning through their languages and looking through their experiences. That was one of the biggest impact it had on my personal life. Not necessarily, I did not, well, I have not been around the area of dating or meeting people online. I married to a Venezuelan, but I met the traditional way. But well, the old fashioned analog way, the analog way.
Rolling in the snow.
Exactly. But that's basically how it has been for my personal life, and with social media, connecting and talking with people, especially this generation that I think is doing a great job talking about the big, important topics that are sometimes are uncomfortable to talk about, but that need to be talked about. And on my professional life, technology has been one of the biggest tools I've been able to use to improve professionally, because everything's on the internet. And has been a way for me to be able to have everything I have in my mind that can be chaotic and organize it and keep myself organized. In my profession, also my professional business, I am a founder of a tech business. It's called United Aircraft Technologies, UAT. And basically we work by monitoring the integrity of electrical systems in aircraft, ground vehicles, you name it. So I went from like learning how to, communicate on the internet, using the internet, to I need to know how this code works. I need to know about how to build electronics. I need to know about manufacturing. I need to know about electromagnetic fields, and everything I did through osmosis and with the help of frantically Googling and learning how to Google. So basically, technology, in summary, entered my life in a very slow but steady way that I think exploded once I actually moved to the States. And basically here I am.
Maybe you can teach me a couple of things, because I short circuit almost all technology I come near. Is this not true? Yes, one of my colleagues is in the room. Something's going on in my electromagnetic field.
There you go.
Greg, after hearing Abigail and thinking about your experience in technology, do you see any similarities, and can you take us into your story?
Yeah, so I do. In fact, on each panelist influence, and I started writing notes down, and sort of taking what I had planned to say and kind of scrap that. My name is Greg Cybulski. I'm director of a local chemical engineering company here in Pittsfield. And Berkshire's became a home for me in the late 90s. I am a native Rhode Islander. I also grew up in Texas, outside of Houston. The first panelist down there, 1983, I wrote a report as a 12-year-old, maybe 12-year-old, on intercontinental ballistic missiles. It was a hot button issue then. And again, I think it was an eighth grade project, right? That was done with colored pencils. All the things that I drew, right? I mean, so that's how we went about that. But it's just to say that sometimes in your mind, you can fix by date the history. It doesn't matter how old you are. Really, really important things make a permanent record in your brain. The young man playing, I don't really play video games, but the one with the car, Grand Theft Auto. So I got one for you. When I grew up in Houston, it was at the advent of cable television. And there's no cable television up north. They were laying cable television from out west east. My parents are both working parents, so in the summers we had the three boys and a bunch of other troublemakers around the neighborhood. At that time, cable came into your house through your yard. It was a green box in the ground, and it was little more than a couple of contact points. And as kids, we discovered that, lo and behold, if you went and you kind of turned the screws a little, you could get different programming on your TV.
We all know what kind of program.
So this is 8 or 9 years old. This 12-year-old stuff is nothing, right?
there anybody
Um,
from Time Warner in the room?
HBO, to give you context, HBO came on at 4 in the afternoon and shut off at 12. It's really, really, my parents had no idea that we had HBO. My parents would go to bed and then, we'd come downstairs and you watch HBO. So anyways, and that was cable. Prior to that, our televisions, rabbit ears, right? Or you had you had to turn the dial on the top so that the larger aerial on your roof pointed to where the signal was coming. Television is a whole lot more different. I'm not going to go into the media and that kind of thing, but the way that we receive information, going back to your point, the way that we can disseminate information is spectacular. So I also organize myself as personally, professionally, those things. The one important one for me, I'm a University of Rhode Island graduate. And I can remember, again, spring of 1993, I was taking a class. I'm less on the humanities side, but I was taking a class. It's called U.S. and World Poverty. And as part of that, we were doing a lot of investigative work on what was happening in Africa at the time. And I happened to focus on Zimbabwe. And, okay, it's neither here nor there. Mozambique had, but all these countries had similar problems going on. But during that, we began to communicate with people in Zimbabwe by email. So that was the first time I used email, and it was on, the characters were green. It wasn't like you had an Outlook presentation today. You got your inbox, you got your spam, no, it was a name and just like a few lines, and literally it was like blinking green characters. Now at the time, I was like, what good is this? I mean, okay, I can sort of communicate with a guy in Zimbabwe, but what does that really do? Because at the time, most of what we were doing was face-to-face. It was telephone. And even today, contrary to the way that you grew up, my daughter graduated, and she'll be 21 this year, so the same age as you are. They lost that sort of personal connection. I'm a salesperson by work and by education, or I'd say by education. I guess we're all salespeople, but for me, the job is always done face to face. And I really, really think that a lot of the divisiveness that was mentioned and what you were talking about, a lot of that gets resolved by community events and face to face opportunities. That's why when I was offered to come to this, I was like, absolutely, man. I'm all for that. I apologize for being late on that meeting. I really, really do. I was with another BIC member, so
Can't blame the commute. It was Zoom.
yeah. And so then the only other part that I would so I'm happy to talk and take questions on technology, but then as I mentioned to a couple of other panelists, there are also cautionary tales with technology where you say, you can go and you can make a bunch of money, blah blah blah. Yeah. There was a point in time, I'm 52 now. There's a point in time where I was the late 20, early 30 something. And I got involved with a design engineer in Eastern Massachusetts. And we developed, I'm in the centrifuge business. So at the time I'd been working here, but then I started this other business, right? A little naive, but ambitious. And we had this design. We thought that it would really be a game changer for industry. And the technology is. We packed our bags, briefcases, headed to Cambridge, and we started shopping out for venture capital. Lo and behold, we raised $20 million. Good money, good money. Just enough to build us a wing. The other one we were building while we were trying to figure out how to fly. The business was successful. We were profitable. As we began to take some projects, the larger, old school corporations took notice. And they said, these guys are taking some of our business. We do not like that. And so they, much like you see that, this goes back to divisiveness, much like, you see in politics today, in business today, these certain competitors undertook a strategic plan to not let us get into industry. So they would deliberately underbid. They would slander every single thing that you could imagine. So as much as technology is a good thing, there's a way that it needs to be rolled out, you know, and there are companies and groups out there, just like if you have a great new political idea or this or that, there are people out there that are going to naysay you, that are going to try to knock you down. BCC, big school, that doesn't freaking matter. What matters is your day-to-day behavior and what you're putting into it, because all kinds of stuff happen. The guy that is going to the big school, guy can get in a car accident. The next thing you know, he's not. I was taught it's not the survival of the fittest; it's the survival of the most fit. So at the end of the day, kind of push that stuff out of the way, because there are always going to be people saying, "Ah, you can't do that. Get the hell out of here." Blah blah blah. So the cautionary tale is, or the takeaway is, those groups are out there, but I didn't let that stop me. It stopped the business. They crushed us. I mean, what are you going to do? It's $1 billion corporate. What are you going to do? That happens in technology these days all the time, right? People are suing each other over patents, this and that. So don't let any of those, the cautionary things that might happen, don't let those discourage you. You take those, that's a scar that you have, but you learn from those things, right? Is there anybody here that doesn't have a scar? You know, I mean, literally and figuratively. I know the spider bite my partner over here, but no, those are the things that really. So yeah,
that
it's
was
a cautionary
something you
tale,
used
but
to
it's
talk
also-
about on first dates, or maybe third dates, before internet dating. You know, I have a scar right up there from when I was 3.
So literal and figurative, right?
Yeah. We're
travel
talking about
scars.
emotional scars from technology and business and real
scars, you know?
scars.
And the things that you learn from that, right? And you take that forward. And so for me, we went out, we raised all that money. It was awesome. It was one of the largest venture capital firms in Cambridge. Morningside, they're huge. Guys are on the Forbes top 100 richest people. I mean, it was ridiculous. But even with that, right, there's competition out there. So so just be careful with that.
Yeah. So what we're really doing now is, go ahead.
Yeah, I
Great.
just want to say one thing
Yeah.
about analog. So if you were a child in the 60s and 70s, you were the analog, you were the remote control for your parents, by the way. Changed the channel and you got up and changed it for them. So I just wanted to speak to that with the rabbit ears and changing the channel.
Yeah, lots of replacement and evolving going on here. A couple of the we're gonna do something prematurely. We're gonna open it up to questions from
Yes.
you as opposed to questions from us, because our panelists, I think, provided a lot of content that will allow you to, you know, engage with them. And that's really what this is about, is that interactivity. Couple of the themes that I think I'm almost fiduciary to announce that I've seen or heard and experienced is that there's this seeker sort of within us that is constantly exploring, a little bit like a pioneer quester, right? Which is being open, receptivity plus exploration, right? And a little bit of self-leadership. So those three competencies sort of come together to kind of get us to do things, right? To understand IR with a technology twist, to take a gaming platform and leverage relationship development with it, and even, hey, a girlfriend in South America. So
Well,
lots
she's
of,
here now, but
yeah, she's here.
she's been here, but she's.
So you
from
did
Venezuela.
well with your combination hybrid approach to relationship generation. Well done. This is always about the synthesizing mind too. So, and also adaptability, right? And having reflection, right, is important. But there's a definite energy of let's go get and understand. Let's have access to things that we want right? We have autonomy as human beings. We want to get things. Technology does allow us to do that, right? So just a couple of themes I feel it's sort of like necessary to sort of announce out loud from my head to your ears. And now I think we should just open it up for questions. As we do the questions, it's important to just know that that seat over there is for you to sit in so that everyone can hear you in the recorded version of this that will be available.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
And if you're too far away from the microphone,
I'll have something to say about it.
there will be someone saying something about it
The motherly way.
in a, that's nurturing and critical parent combined. So thoughts and questions from the chair, or if you have a real, Michael, why don't you jump in the chair? Yeah. So Michael's going to come up and he's going to ask a question. If you could just, if you're asking a question of a particular panelist, if you could.
Chair's not electrified, right?
No,
No, nope, none of that going on.
Yeah.
I have a question about across the.
closer.
Closer.
I have a
Did you not learn
question.
from my mistakes?
Is it on?
I don't think it's, this
Can
is.
you hear me?
Oh, it should be on.
I think if it's green,
Is
it's.
that better?
Yes.
Yes, there you go.
Technology. It's a bitch. I have a question for the entire panel. And it goes to sort of personal, very up close and personal technology. And I think only one of the panelists is wearing a watch. I couldn't see your wrists. You wearing a watch?
Oh, me? No.
Yeah, so Nicholas is the only one wearing a watch. What's your use of watches? Because I had this discussion with people, analog, digital, fitness tracker, or why should I have a watch? I have a phone with me all the time. That's my question about your relationship with that very upfront, personal, wearable technology.
So I'll take the first one. I don't wear wearable technologies at the moment, although in the fabric industry that I'm in, there are smart fabrics coming and eventually we're going to wear stuff like that. Yeah, so, right, but I don't, so for an analog watch, I have a drawer full of them. I don't use an alarm to wake up. And if I do need to know time, it's generally either due to meetings that I've got going on all day long, or you're looking at your phone. But myself, I've tried to not use a watch because I think we get maybe too hooked up on what am I doing? What am I doing? How much time do I have? That kind of thing.
Okay, Abigail, go.
Okay.
60 seconds, boom.
Okay, lo hago en español entonces porque me pueden entender lo que estoy diciendo.
Hello.
Okay, sorry. For me, it's both of a practical and it also, it's just probably a me thing. I type a lot and I feel like watches get in my way when I type. Everything's on my phone or on my computer while I'm working. And second, I cannot be trusted with very expensive technology such as smartwatch because I will leave it somewhere and it will remain lost. So basically.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
So in regards to analog watches, I never got into wearing them. I was a troublemaker when I was a kid, so I always liked the excuse of I didn't know what time it was. And then as far as modern day wearable technology, I'm very hypersensitive to electricity and fields. I don't even like to keep my phone on me if I don't have to have it. So the idea of wearing like a smartwatch is actually kind of terrifying to me. I feel like I don't need those energy waves coming directly into like one of my arteries. I feel like it's going to give me cancer.
Man, I love this thing. I'm serious. I mean, look. We got the time, we got the date, we got the weather. It's gonna snow at 9, just so y'all know. We got the iMessage, we got the fitness tracker, and the fitness tracker is huge because I play a lot of basketball. So every time I do that and I'll be playing for like 3 hours and I see I burn 2,000 calories, I'm like, we're going out to eat after that because that's a lot of calories burned. But yeah, no, I mean, look at that. I just got a notification from the Boston Celtics. I'm a big Celtics fan. So it tells me this, sorry, I almost ate the mic. It tells me the starting lineup, the score of the game. Yeah, it's an Apple Watch. Yeah, of course. I'm team Apple over here, but yeah, no, I really like the watch.
So we have
cool.
a definite watch wearer in the
Oh,
garage.
for sure.
Definite.
And it's actually one thing is super helpful too. Like it's not just, I know a lot of people just think it's technology, whatever, just for fun, but there's a lot of like, if you're older and like you fall, it detects the fall.
Mhm.
And see, there you go. And her life is going to be saved. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it can detect like when you're in a car crash. It can, what is really nice when you're driving, because you just be like, hey Siri, text my dad, get ice cream on the way home or something like that. But I mean, it's really, no, it's super cool. It's really helpful. So.
Catherine, watch, no watch views.
No watch. I'm retired. So I'm-
no need for time.
So the watch
So-
is retired.
but I never would have finished my dissertation if I hadn't had a place where I could go to swim. So when ideas were not coming as I was sitting at the computer, I could go and swim and then the ideas would start to flow. So I needed a swimming pool And I needed a kitchen timer, which I now use on my phone or on my phone. That if I'm working, I set the timer for 45 minutes. I work for 45 minutes. I get up, I put the dishes in the dishwasher. I put the clothes in the laundry. I need a mental break, but if I don't set the timer for 15 minutes, then I take a break for 45 minutes. And so I use a timer to manage when I'm working on something really serious.
So did you
I
used to use the dial timer when you were in? the
I
little-
used a dial timer, absolutely. I was so sad when it died because it
What's a
was really
dial?
easy.
You don't.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, dial kitchen timer. I wouldn't have gotten a PhD without it.
So when my father was receiving treatment for lung cancer and lymphoma at Mass General, we were able to sit in the bed together and look at auctions on classic cars, right? It was so fun. And he was able to use technology to get better stations into, right? And also communicate, into the room because,
Yeah.
TV stations, even at Mass General, the receptions and the options are limited. So he could get stations that he wanted. And he could speak to the Amazon driver, right, through his Ring at his house. So this would all happen in about like a few minutes. So as an efficiency model, he was connecting while he was going through this treatment that just extended his life 6 more months. But he was so engaged with the technology that it allowed him to have a lot of fun, actually, quite frankly, as he was doing all of this. And so as I'm thinking about the watch, I thought of my dad, and then I thought of a student that I met with before I went to see my dad one day. And we were at a cafe, and a gal who was about his age was waiting on us, and she smiled at him, and he smiled back, and his heartbeat went through the watch as she walked away. And I kind of looked at the other colleague, and he looked at us. He said, I can never wear this watch again. So there is something going on where the feedback coming in can be helpful, and the access and ability to have some fun can be helpful. But it also, it's about these different situations and what you can anticipate as being useful or really like a distraction, right? So I'm wondering a little bit about the audience. Do you have any questions linked to anything that
I just want to say, I really like that story that your father was able to connect. And I think a lot of our elderly get very isolated. And I think that's a beautiful use of technology.
Oh,
I
that's
really like that.
Yeah.
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 Positive ding for technology.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and even my grandmother was 96 years old, and she was videoing me, saying hello, and she would call it a visit.
No,
To
I
your
love
point,
that.
she would say
Yeah,
that was really
that's
nice
beautiful.
visit we had. This technology is pretty good.
It's all
Would
right.
say yes, vovó, which is Portuguese for grandmother. So anything along these lines that, yes. Oh, you have to go into the chair. You have to, I mean. Oh, whoa, I'm sorry. We have a preemptive person in the,
Jim, go first.
Jim, I didn't even see you. You got into the, did you?
have to get in the hot seat when he jumps.
Paul, you're in line. Jim, please, my apologies.
It's okay.
Terrible.
Can I be heard?
Yes.
Oh, yes, of
Okay.
course, yes.
Model child.
The one thing that I find very influential and talked about all the time is to what extent online issues, all the things that we see influence opinion.
Mhm.
The influence on opinion is a huge issue, driving movements, driving politics, driving personal opinions about things. And my question is, to what extent and since when have you been influenced by what you can read online, you know, FaceTime, whether it's TikTok, or whatever it is, since when and in what ways are you influenced in creating your opinion? And to what extent does that lead you to conclusions or to action or whatever? Because it's just there all the time.
I can take a jump at that, as I know I was talking a little bit about that earlier, about having those conversations that can be difficult, but that need to be had. So the internet is a very influential place. You can be influenced to purchase a product, influenced in your opinion. I think in a way that has been influenced me is, at least the way I see it, is exposing me to certain issues and certain things that I was not previously aware of, because either I have not experienced it myself or it's not within my surroundings. But by being able to see it from that person's point of view, understanding their person's point of view, I can begin to learn more about the subject and about what is one of the major issues that they're facing. And then that in that way, it influences me to dig a little bit deeper about what is going on. And I feel like a lot of us, at least within the recent couple of years, have been feeling that internet can be a powerful tool to enact change, and change in more of a positive way, or more of a way that could help propel us forward. It also, I will do the con, it also can be divisive, depending on how you use it. So for me, at least, each person has a different way of their influence. For me, has been exposed to those circumstances, understanding from the person's own experiences, and then from there, looking into all the information that surrounds it. And then if I see, or if I form an opinion that change needs to happen, I can use the internet to help propel or enact the change by either sharing the information, leading them to the sources, and doing things that to help make people more aware of and unite voices. So
Interesting. Who else?
I can say that I'm not a big social media user, but I do definitely use the internet for news and for feeds that I'm interested in. Oftentimes you see someone has written something as it's a claim statement that maybe you think is really true, or it's BS or whichever. And for me, I come again more from a scientific background, so I'll say that research is research. You can't take what one person says, no matter what it is, and take that as gospel. If you're going to be disciplined and you're going to be a person who wants to form your own opinions and informed opinions, you need to take a look at different sources of information. And I think if you do that, well, I think it's incumbent upon us to do that, because to one of the terms is to fishbowl, right? If everybody's saying the same thing, sounding the same thing, you're telling me, I'm telling you, and you know, the froth is built. I don't buy into that fishbowl stuff. I generally will try to take a look and say, hey, what's being said in this country? What's being said on this paper? What's being said from this place? I've had an opportunity, and there's some people here that have traveled around. I've also had the opportunity to travel around. And once you do, you start to lose you definitely lose your bigotry. You lose a lot of the misconceptions that you have, maybe that you were raised with. But the main point is you have to take conclusions from an aggregate personally. So it's multiple sources of information. Then you distill that down for yourself. So that's how I try to not to be influenced by one statement, but if it's something that's compelling enough, I'll research it and I'll take my own conclusion.
Okay, Jim, can I just, Jim and I are friends, we work together, but I just finished a biography of Samuel Adams. Okay, so Sam Adams in the 1760s, he was a really smart guy. He was an anonymous journalist. He wrote under pseudonyms, but he figured out that he could get the news to London about 6 weeks before the royal governor could. by sending things to friends. And his two agents in London were Ben Franklin and Arthur Lee of the Lee family, Robert E. Lee of the Next Generation, two people who signed the Declaration of Independence. Okay, the royal governor's information would get there 6 weeks later. So he had already shaped the opinions in London because he got things there earlier. So it's not, yes, we are spinning so fast right now, but there's nothing new about that. I think what's really new and what really concerns me is the business model that underlies the spin. Because the business model to underlie the spin is a marketing model. It isn't a news model. And so it spins the most extreme things faster. We know that from all the algorithms. And that's not just on social media. You guys can go and look for this. The Berkman Center at Harvard worked with the people, the media people at MIT, and they tracked all the data from who was covering what during the 2016 election. And the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and NPR were almost as bad as Fox on relaying misinformation and covering what Trump said that was a lie about immigration 8 times more than what Hillary Clinton was saying about immigration that was correct. We have a business model that is destroying our democracy. And if we don't disentangle those things, we have to stop and think about what's driving it. And we have to sort those things out. And in the same way that I had to go out on a limb as a teacher to start integrating technology into things that I was teaching and not just how it got delivered. But with Congress, the questions that they ask, they are so far behind, and their ability to disentangle it is not good. And so we have to find other ways of understanding why we are being driven by information that is inaccurate.
So I just want to say, I see a lot of nodding heads in here. So for my curiosity, Catherine, that was really,
Sorry, it really
no, that's
drives
a
me
lot of
nuts.
passion there. It's wonderful. That's why you're here. We want that passion. So by show of hands, how many agree that there may be some skew there? Well, I'm not saying just maybe or yes. How many agree in this room feel that there's definitely some concern here? So the majority of the hands go up here. The majority of the hands go up here. So we have to remember, we do have more power than we think we do. Mm-hmm. So somewhere along the way, we have to start taking action on our own lives with our own politicians, or however we decide to do this, to start to say that this isn't working for us. Because if the majority is getting concerned about such things, that is the beauty of a democracy right now, is that we can speak up to such things. Anyway.
So I think that, Marshall Soulful Jones did a great poetry slam, and he a lift from it is a friend of mine, and does a lot of voice work. And, he says iPad, right? iMac, all of these things without making eye contact, right? 10 tabs open, hoping to be part of this revolution, this evolution. Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, we worked together for a while. So it's interesting that we get, so we devour through our devices, right? And as Marshall would say, 5,000 friends that I can count online, but only 5 in real life. But who am I to judge? ... Well, you are to judge. You are to have a philosophy. You are to evolve some sense of a mental model that allows you to use your brain, the ultimate processing unit, to discern what is right, what is worth adding voice to, what is worth discriminating from an inference standpoint and logical standpoint. But
The
the
original technology,
yeah,
right? Our original technology.
absolutely. And so I think that all of the comments really kind of lead into this giant pointer to this.
Mhm.
How do you discern? How do you look to discern with this much complexity today, with this much stimulation today? And how much control do you exercise today, right? It's just a question, it's a thought that we might want to focus on developing a philosophy, maybe even around technology. You know, some of my academic friends were telling me, you know, hey, there are no philosophers anymore. There's no philosophy for living. Even religions would provide that at one point. But, you know, gone are those days too, one said to me. And she smiled and laughed like, ha, ha, ha. And I thought, that's not ha, ha, ha. That's yikes.
Yeah.
Where is the philosophy? Abigail, take it from here.
So Oren and
Oh, well,
Nicholas, I'm
Abigail had a
sorry.
had a
Oops,
question.
oops,
We gotta get her
oops.
in.
I didn't want to
Oh,
see
yeah.
if they want to answer.
No,
this
she's
question.
in. She's
Okay,
in.
Okay.
She's in.
I'm in.
Oh,
I have good peripheral vision, so you're not the only parent here.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to, because I like the way that you stated, you know, this is our biggest tool, our original, you know, or algorithms, I guess you could
our
call it neural
original
network.
technology.
Yes. And I think I like your comment when you said, you know, establish a philosophy surrounding technology, surrounding forming opinions and informed opinions about things. But I think the core of that philosophy being built is having people being educated and conscious about biased Googling. Because we can all form an opinion or a misinformed opinion, since if we go into Google and we search things and we word things in a certain way to already support the opinion that we already created for ourselves. So I think the core of that philosophy to be built and that should be spread into current generations and future generations is being so aware of how we can sometimes unconsciously do biased research and Googling to, you know, say I'm right because so-and-so from somewhere said so.
Yeah, touching on that, and what Greg said, I think that
In the microphone.
is my mic, can you guys, like, I can't even tell, it's so close. I think this is actually one of the bigger problems with technology. It's one of the things that scares me a little bit more is from a generational standpoint, you know, I grew up in a world where when you had to write a book report, you would spend all day at the library, you had to pull multiple sources, you had to cite your sources, and that type of learning isn't really prominent anymore. And I think as a result of that, the younger generations don't have the discernment that Greg was talking about. You know, when I come across information, I don't, it's like, I'm not going to pull from one source. I'm not going to pull from a fishbowl source. And I was taught to have the ability to, you know, it's like you put yourself in the other person's shoes. You know, it's like when you're, especially when it comes to something that you disagree with, it's important for you to try and perceive where the other person is coming from so that you can, you know, find a rational middle ground. And I think that the majority of the people that have, you know, like Nicholas's generation, they grew up in a world where technology was always in their face. And unfortunately, you know, we touched on marketing. It's a business model. It's about money. It's about clicks. It's about attention span. And those things are dangerous because there's an entire generation of children and young adults who don't know how to discern, who don't know how to put themselves in the other person's shoes and get that different perspective. So when it comes to technology, I think that's one of the things that's most important. Like you said, it's about teaching people to understand how to find multiple sources and then make an educated decision, not a decision because so-and-so that I agree with said so, or because this one article, you know, presents information that I was already on board with.
Sorry, can I interrupt here? So Nick, do you think, because I work with a lot of young people and I think they're quite discerning. And so I'm not sure that young people are, I think in some ways they're more media savvy than I am for some kinds of media.
Mm.
So do you feel like you've been trained to discern different, the value of different kinds of information that you get through technology?
To be honest with you, I think like she said, like misinformation, like that's huge for me because I'm just gonna give you guys an example. Say like, what do we got going on right now? Like Russia, Ukraine. We got, everybody, you're influenced as an American because we support Ukrainians. Like you think like, oh, Russian people are bad people. It's like, no, it's not the people, it's the government, right? It's that one person in power. It's all about that power. So like right there, that's like, misinformation. It's huge influence on the American people because it's like, I don't know, not propaganda, but it's,
Oh, it's definitely.
yeah, it's something like that, I mean, it's, yeah, it is propaganda. I mean, it's just like misinformation. I mean, I grew up, a young kid, like we had this kid come into our house. He came from Afghanistan and like, he was telling me like, I was like growing up, Afghanistan to me was like, oh, whew, never want to go there. You know what I'm saying? But he was telling me that like, he had the Taliban walking on his street and he was telling me like, I asked him about this thing and he was like saying that, yeah, the American newspaper would say that there was like a huge bombing. And he's like, no, that happened like 3 years ago. You know what I'm saying? It's just they were always trying to push that agenda. It was like almost trying to hate on those people. But those people aren't bad people. It's just the people that want the power. So right there, that was like the huge misinformation. And when I heard that from an Afghani, I was like, wow, like that is crazy. And hearing that so young, that really changed my mind like throughout, growing up and everything. And to this day, I love to watch like YouTube videos of like a vlogger going to Afghanistan and seeing how it is, like how it really is, not just how American media shows the American citizens how it is. I mean, we grew up with like 9/11 too. I mean, you guys grew up going into an airport and you don't even have to check the security. I go in there, they're like, shoes off, jacket off. I'm like, yo, oh my God. No, it's true though. You guys like grew up with like, it's like, I don't know, it's like a freer world kind of back then, but now it's very tight, the security. And I grew up like heavily influenced just by media, like scared of those people. I'm not necessarily scared of them now, like of course not, but like because I know they're just human. But back then it was kind of like, I looked at them differently because of what the news portrayed to me as a young kid. So
I would say that answer is an indication that discernment is alive in
Yes.
Nicholas's generation. And, I think it's really important that we realize that these universal competencies like discernment that we have, we might not see it in certain contexts and situations with certain types of generations, but just like Greg was looking to speak to somebody via email in another country when email emerged as the latest and greatest technology, he expanded his worldview. So back to worldview and perspective, if we're going to be multi-perspectivistic, right, we have to take on other angles. We have to speak to other people and we have to give space in whatever place we're in to hear the voice of the other. But the presumption isn't that it's not totally shut down, this discernment. I think the answer, Nicholas, thank you, is a good indication, a reminder that, discernment is alive across the generations. We just might not see it in the places that we used to see it.
And and of course, I think absolutely there's the influence and people, I think fear can influence people where sometimes they're not using discernment, right? But I do agree. I think there is more discernment than I think most people think.
And I know we're getting close on time
I
here.
can't believe it.
PJ,
Yes.
correct?
How are we doing?
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to honor Paul, who is in the
Yes.
third position for questions.
Please.
And I
Yes.
know Jim is filibustering the chair.
I'm
So-
about to get up.
Stop picking on Jim.
My apologies
Thank
for
you,
the
Jim.
lack of
Thank you.
discernment, Jim. Come on now.
We'll put him in the corner.
Yeah. Jim, thank you for the question.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Hey, so really this was
Ooh,
just
good
a
job, Paul.
follow-on question about wearables, and I'm curious how different generations, thank you all panelists for being here, how you interpret this. I read an article recently that was talking about how we are already cyborgs or on our way to becoming cyborgs based on things where the phone is actually an extension now of us. right? Because it's like, oh, I need to look for something. I'm just gonna pull my phone out and look at it. Oh, I don't know the answer. Where do you turn? To a computer to search to find your answer. So we've already embedded technology into sort of like the fabric of our normal life. And so I was curious what, different generational takes on that might be. Thank you.
Oh, okay, I guess I'll bite the bullet this time too. I think I may have maybe a unique perspective on that since my technology does involve a augmented reality component or mixed reality component. If I say augmented, my software developer will hear that and will kill me. But for those out finding right now in technology, we're looking at VR, virtual reality, augmented reality, which is AR, and mixed reality. VR completely in a digital world. Augmented is reality with a little bit of additional digital information. Mixed is a mixture of both, right? So for us, explain briefly, our system monitors electrical wiring, so you can see what's called a keyword digital twin of an aircraft, see all of the electrical systems. And for those that know, if you've seen Star Wars, Star Trek, or the Avengers, Tony Stark's, sorry, I just realized, goes like this and turns things around. Basically, that's what we do for electric. Thank you. I need to hire for like the Air Force, so you can tell that when I'm pitching to people. But basically, as we develop and as I play with it, it's becoming so natural for me to just reach into blank air, pinch something, and turn it around and make it feel almost feels tactual. We use a HoloLens for it, so I can see people around me, but there's a little sound every time you go. It does that sound, and it creates this tactual sense, and then the same thing when you look at your phone now that the home button is not gone, but you still has that little vibration. It feels like there's a button there, but there's none. So I think the way technology is going, this world's going to be more and more blurred, because it's going to be just something so natural as us just reaching and touching a piece of glass to get to our emails. It's going to be as simple as just swiping a notification away. And I know we started doing that with Google Glass or others. I think there's still a little bit more way there in regards to the hardware tech, but I think give it 10 years. We will be walking around the streets and you're just going like this and flipping through.
Some of you will be, some of us will not be.
Yeah, I'll be doing the Vogue on my way down 42nd Street. So
Yeah, I'll jump in and say that level of technology terrifies me because I grew up watching the Terminator movies and I'm afraid of Skynet. So I think that when it comes to the full integration, and there's actually been a lot of articles about this in the past few years. As somebody who a lot of the work I do is very spiritual. I teach meditation. I'm a massage therapist and a certified herbalist. So a lot of my life is about nature and natural remedies and natural energies. And I think that this is actually going to be what causes a rather large schism down the road in society, because there will be the people that, are advantageous and excited about these technological advancements. And then there's going to be the hippies like me who are terrified and not interested in them whatsoever. I think it's going to cause a really interesting and potentially confrontational separation within society. But at the same time, I see the benefits, and I respect the people that want to go down that road, but I'm not letting Elon put no chip in my brain.
So that what you're talking about is the term that's being used as singularity, right? And singularity is
Transhumanism.
is really the melding of the human brain and digital technologies, to where learning isn't going to be what we think of learning. And they're calling for singularity. They're saying the soonest it'll be roughly 2040. It's not that far off. The VR stuff, all that stuff may also very likely go away. Singularity is going to be it's going to be a major divider in the future. And one of the reasons is because
Especially if they force it.
well, it's going to be because the rich will get it first, right? So much like other technologies, it will be a trickle down, and it'll be controlled by the people that have the money. Same as the story that I said, the cautionary tale before. Old money protects their money. That's why the group in Congress, you have very smart, wise people, but sometimes they stay past really where they should. And that's a tale for everybody. But I would say that the wearables, I work in functional fabrics. So I mentioned before, you're going to be wearing all of your clothes. Every place that you have textile that crosses one another is a sensor point. And so, it's really, really scary how that works.
Buy your
So
clothes now.
all of your biometric, everything can be measured, and that's what goes into that singularity. The singularity thing also takes away the need to study and knowledge, and the other one is the AI,
And
ChatGPT, right? All those other things
Artificial
going on.
intelligence, yeah.
There's a, I know we're up against time, but that's, I agree, is a very, very dangerous point that's coming up in not more than a couple decades.
Yeah, we've all seen The Matrix. I'm not trying to be in a pod. Yep.
So I you want to
It's
jump
been
on that,
fabulous.
Catherine, or
Well,
I don't
guess
want to.
I would want to. That the whole singularity thing, I think, is very interesting, but also very, very scary.
Mhm.
But as somebody who, when I was doing my research on my dissertation, living in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and I would have to drive to the library at Yale. And because a lot of the work I was doing was in government documents, I had to go to this really sort of smelly, because it was all these old documents, not microfiched, library. And now I just finished teaching a course on re-examining the British Empire. And I mean, there was way more available to me sitting in my, study space in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. What is available to me to study, what is available to me to do research on, is far beyond anything that was in the best library in the world when I was in grad school. And so the opportunities that we have to do research, to, think about, nanotechnologies and nanomaterials, and, it's just astonishing. But I still believe that at some point, and this goes back to what Alexandra was talking about earlier, information is not knowledge, and knowledge is not wisdom, and intelligence is not character. And unless we can disentangle those qualities, and figure out how to enhance character and wisdom at the same time that we're being flooded with information, we're going to get ourselves into trouble, I think.
So with that Nostradamus-like prediction, we're going to move to our final question. And I will add that I think that what I'm hearing too is that there's before the final question is asked of the panelists, we're talking about the need for contextual intelligence. What will serve you well in dissertationville, right? Or someone who needs access to data and knowledge might not serve you well in other areas. Might serve you, what might serve you well as a diabetic, getting information on, your glucose, right? You might need watches and other technologies that are wearable, bandable, and helpful to your monitoring. So understanding what room should be focusing on what technology that can serve you. And that's a really important question. How is technology, not to be answered now because we could go to midnight, of course, how is technology serving you? And in what ways is context playing itself into the way you're thinking about it? In it, and if it's serving you well, how so? Is it bringing you toward people and toward yourself, your identity, your narrative, right? What you should be doing in the world, what your motivations are, or is it distracting you from that? Is it an impediment to focus and translating aspirations into behaviors that are actionable that you want to leave in this world as a memory trace? So it's just some insights that I had as sort of a sitting here that I wanted to share with you all. And Lindsay's turn, and you're going to bring us home. Final
Okay.
question for the panelists, and we're going to wrap it up.
So my name is Lindsay, and I'm a high school science teacher. And so I'm at the point in my career where technology is very huge for my students. But I've also had the opportunity to use it, and I see its benefit, but I'm also extremely terrified by it as well. And I guess this actually goes off of what you were just saying, Dennis. How do we get people to ask the question? How do we get them to ask that question? Because my biggest concern right now is that you mentioned, Nick, was it this idea that you were able to kind of have an epiphany when you talk to your friend about and kind of clearing up misinformation. But instantaneous information is very good and very bad at the same time. And so I'm wondering what you guys think. And this is going to hopefully help me too, as I go back to my community and as a teacher. How do we get students? How do we get younger generations? How do we get people to ask that question? How do we get to the discernment piece? Because I think that is going to be our biggest turning point to whether technology is good or bad.
Wow.
This is very good.
Yeah,
Very
so
good question.
I'll jump in and start first with this because I think that's one of the most important questions that we need to be asking right now. And as a teacher, you're kind of the answer. And that's where in lies a lot of the problem, is that there's teachers out there who, like you, understand both the positive and negative side, and you are able to have these types of conversations. And unfortunately, there's a lot of teachers out there that aren't. And I think that that's one of the big problems, is that when it comes to public education, we've gotten to a place over the past 50, 60 years where children are learning much less at home from their parents, and they're learning from teachers in schools, and these schools have curriculum that are being dictated by politics and money. And at the end of the day, I think, the safest way and the most efficient way for you to affect that change is to have those conversations with your students as often as possible. Like Nicholas's example about how he had this media presented idea of Afghanistan and that conflict, and then he was introduced to something that was so different and that was true compared to what he thought was true. I think that unfortunately that burden falls both on parents and teachers like yourself. And it's really frustrating and terrifying because there's a lot of contention, there's a lot of separation, and there's a lot of division in the education system, because a lot of the people that are in positions of power, both in the administrative boards and the people teaching in the classrooms, they're not as open as they should be, given the positions that they hold, educating our future generations. So, realistically, the most important thing would be for people like you to be diligent, not only with your students, but with your peers and your coworkers and your friends who have children, and make sure that you're having these multi-tiered, both side conversations with as many people as you can in any opportunity that it presents itself.
I would say that you cited two teachers, the teacher and the parent teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll add on to that. I guess I have many lives in this current life. I was a high school teacher. I taught a living environment out of Syracuse, New York. As an ESL, I used to teach English as a second language. So I had this conversation with students because I dealt with students that came from Kenya, from Somalia, and others. And I took, I think it was a week almost a week, to basically talk about what I brought up earlier, biased searching. And I created sort of a unit focusing on helping them ask the right questions and using the internet appropriately. But when they were left to do more of a project base for that, it was in a controlled environment. I did that with my more advanced ESL class. With my intermediate class, I did a kind of like a social experiment. I basically said an outlandish claim. I did an outlandish claim. I forget, it's been 10 years now. I did an outlandish claim, and then I said, these are my sources, this is what I found it. And I made it something, a specific one to make them kind of like get angry at me. And then from there, I let them get as angry and as stupid for like good 10 minutes, which if other teachers are here, is the most hilarious thing you can do in a class. Get them so angry. It also fills you with a little bit of joy. A little bit about the teachers that you probably had. It's true, right? So, and then I open up my presentation and then I walked them through it. And I think that was one of my best approaches because fortunately and unfortunately, some of them found me on Facebook. And I think 4 years ago, I had one of my prior students who now is an ESL teacher. Another one is a kindergarten teacher, and the other one is an engineer. Said that to this day, they still remember that class and that it was very helpful in college. So I trusted them that they were smarter than sometimes we give them credit for. And then I just triggered them. I just triggered them. And that stayed there with them for a long time. So yeah.
I know I
Great
do quite
story.
a few of those things too.
So
I think
we're
Yeah,
kind of at that
yeah,
time. And
we are at
Lindsay,
that
thanks
time.
for that really meaningful question, getting us to rethink
Wonderful.
parenting and teaching and the role that we have.
Thank you.
And what strikes me is that that's a full duplex relationship, and we don't always have those online. So if we grab just information online, it's static, it's already there, right? But I can't push back with the creator the same way with voice, inflection, and curiosity. And I think that's probably why we're losing our communication muscle. Not just in one gen, but across many gens, there seems to be some atrophy, like in terms of the ability to communicate around critical matters. So maybe that's something else we can think about modeling as we go back to our communities and our workplaces.
Now, I just want to thank everyone for being so open today. I really appreciate all of your perspectives, and I just think it's really important for all of us to be the model, to use the discernment and to teach the discernment, and definitely be the model for, I think, tolerance and for deeper understandings and for communication, for deeper
So
communication.
does this affirm your suspicion that we're the original technology?
We are the original technology, aren't we? We don't want AI to take us over now, do we? Or Elon Musk.
I love this question just to end, and just very quickly, I know it's hard or challenging at times to be quick because you have a lot to say and there's a lot has been said, but if we could call this a little bit of a quick round where you just go maybe 30 to 45 seconds, what you learned, what you unlearned, or what you relearned from your panelists or the audience today. What you learned, you don't have to answer everyone. It's what you learned, unlearned, or relearned. It's a great way for us to sort of get into your heads and to punctuate the night.
Just for me, I'll say, well, the thing that I relearned or that was emphasized was the last point that you made, that there's it's really critical to get to work on ourselves, our families, as parents and as teachers as they're young, and to bring those people up in an environment that really fosters open communication. So I really appreciate the comments and the duality conversation there. So thank you.
Abigail?
Oh,
Learn,
I'm still
unlearn, relearn.
thinking.
I'm trying to trigger you in a positive way.
No, I'm just kidding. Basically, I found very interesting, and I learned how basically all throughout all of our generations, we use technology basically for the same purpose, to improve, to extend, and to use it as a positive tool in either our professional lives or in other regards in our personal lives. I guess in a way I relearned how every person's interactions with technology is highly personalized, and it's going to differ from person to person, and that is perfectly okay. Yeah.
Nice, thank you.
So I guess I would say on the question of relearning, and this happens
How
a
to
lot.
use a microphone.
Yeah. How to use a microphone. Thanks, Alex.
That's
Aside from relearning how to use a microphone, I'm constantly reminded, periodically throughout my life that people are a lot more open and understanding than we sometimes give them credit for, especially after the climate of the past few years, whether it's, spiritually, politically, financially, we've all been through great ups and downs, individually and as a culture. And I think it's important to remind yourself that just because somebody learned something in a different way than you, or at a different time in their life, or in a different context, doesn't mean that you can't communicate and find common ground.
Excellent, thanks, Oren. Nicholas?
I've learned that, the older generation, me and, what's your name again? Sorry. Your name? No, yeah.
Abigail.
¿Cómo te llamas? Okay. Me and her, we're kind of hopeful when it comes to technology. Like, we see it as something like bright and something very interesting and cool, and we know and see how it's going to help people in the future. But it seemed like the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s, it got kind of like, it got scarier each time, It was like, you guys are almost like you're scared of what's to come because of how you grew up. And me and her, we grew up, obviously we're younger, so not to be mean, but we're younger.
I think you may have missed the story of.
I think you need to watch Terminator.
Of my father and my grandmother, but
Yeah, no,
it's
like
okay.
it's different.
We'll work on focus.
Yeah, obviously it's
right.
it's different. It's like different for different people.
Yeah.
But, I mean, for them, what I saw is that they seem a little bit more afraid and more conservative with it, I guess.
Yeah, and that's a good conversation point. So if you have,
Concern.
whatever someone articulates as what they learned, unlearned, relearned, can be extended into our conversation after we wrap it up, after Catherine really truly brings us home. Catherine, 30 to 45 seconds.
No pressure, Catherine.
I mean, like, you're a dissertation person, like 30 to 40. This is like abstract material.
Oh,
Remember
but
abstract 250 words so that
But she has
could
the
find
best
you on
quotes.
ProQuest.
She has the best quotes.
Come on now. Here we go, Catherine.
I really feel like the thing that I relearned is that every generation or every age cohort is encountering this technology from a different framework. And it doesn't mean it's a better framework or a worse framework. It's just a different framework. And that we all need to be open to that framework that exists for each group, each 10-year generation down the table. And that technology, whether it's fire or whether it's the Apple Watch or whether it's Zooming this talk to other people, every technology can be used for good or ill. And that it's incumbent upon us as human beings to do everything we can to make it be for good.
Thank
you.
Very well said.
So that's a wrap. And I think of a quote that my friend Scott McGregor, a Connecticut guy himself near Yale, brought into my world, which is people over everything. Right. And if we think about that, maybe that can help shorten the way we start to think about the technologies that we promote and the ways that we act behaviorally in this world. And so thanks for being here at the BIC.
Thank you so much.
And
You
we
are-
have some more chatting and drinks and snacks for you in the other room. Okay, have a
Thank
great
you.
evening.